Too much Monta.
Monta Ellis, ask the fellas. Who talk trash because they jealous? Laid back from the south, trying to act up, I'll make you shut your mouth.
Okay, so it's been a while since I did a video about the Mavericks, and there's a lot of stuff to go over. I'm not sure I can go over everything that I've missed, but let's try. Let's start with Willie Cauley-Stein. The Mavericks traded him for the Jazz pick, and that Jazz pick is likely to be like the 55th pick or something. And so in my opinion, that's honestly a steal for the Mavericks. Although, if you've seen like Warriors fans or even Kings fans, because Willie used to play for the Kings, they're all like surprised that the Mavericks wanted to trade him, and they're like Warriors fans are kind of glad that they're rid of him, and they feel like the Warriors need the money in the offseason, and I mean that's fair, I guess. Yeah, I mean the thing is, Willie has some like tendencies to not really try on defense and rebounding, and that's an issue for sure. I mean he's a good rim runner though, and like if you want to compare him to Dwight Powell, because they did the trade because of the Dwight Powell injury. Willie is a better rebounder than Dwight, a better shot blocker as well. But I don't think he's a better defender overall. So I'm interested to see when he plays next to Kristaps, who out of the two defends the rim, because both of them are not really great perimeter defenders, I don't think. Although at the same time, it was kind of obvious lately when Kristaps had to defend DeAndre Ayton that Kristaps isn't really that great at defending like skilled low post bigs. And I'm not sure about Willie, but he's more used to being like a full-time center, so maybe he's better at that. I hope so. So yeah, I mean they're gonna have to figure out who defends the five if they play together. But like I said, he's a good rim runner and good screen setter. I think he's gonna have his best year yet on the Mavericks. Luka is gonna help him a lot for sure, and the spacing of Kristaps is gonna help him for sure as well. So lately, because Dwight Powell has been injured, the Mavericks have used a small ball lineup because then they have Dorian at the 4 and Kristaps at the 5, and it has worked in some cases because it provides more spacing. But I really feel like in Rick's system and next to someone like KP, it's very useful to have a rim runner. And Maxi Kleber is kind of that. He can provide some rim running. So I think playing bigger with Maxi next to Kristaps or Willie, I think that's for the better, and I hope they do that soon. And also Seth Curry hasn't been great in the starting lineup, in my opinion at least. So like yesterday the news broke that Luka injured his foot, his ankle, and it is the same ankle from before. So that kind of sucks. Last time he was out for like 4 or 5 games, and I think he might be out for the same time now. I mean it's fine because as long as I would like him to play in the All-Star game. I hope he can, and it's not bad for him to have some rest. But yeah, definitely frustrating for the team, for him, and I hope he gets better soon. Last time Kristaps actually played better in the absence of Luka. I don't think that's because Luka holds him down or anything. I think the opposite, but it's more probably that he feels that he has to step up more. I think that's mostly it. Okay, so something I wanted to talk about for a while was about the post up and the Kristaps Porzingis situation with that. Like Rick talked about how posting up is not a good play anymore, and we know something that Rick does, and I didn't really realize it at the time. But I know that he always does that, but he never really attacks his players, but he says some things globally like that involves his players, and like kind of what he's saying, in my opinion at least, or other people have said it as well, is that just Kristaps isn't really good in the post, at least this year. And on the Knicks, he used to be good, but not on the levels that maybe Jokic or DeAndre Ayton or Embiid are. They're shooting much higher percentages than Kristaps has ever done in the post. So, Rick is not wrong in that regard, I don't think. And on mismatches, it's a good idea to post him up. And Rick tried to say it, but like Luka is a better post player, and that's true. So it's actually a better idea to post Luka more than Kristaps, and I agree with that. Although I would like Kristaps to be better and shoot higher percentages so that he could shoot more, but the percentages just don't back it up. And what Rick has talked about is kind of what analytics say is that you only have to shoot 33% from the 3-point line, and that way you shoot 1 point per possession. And you'd have to shoot 50% from mid-range or post-up to have the same effect. But at the same time, you're providing less spacing. Because if you're shooting 3-pointers, then you have more space to create for layups. So pretty much you'd have to shoot around 60% on post-ups and mid-range. And that's tough to do. So the conclusion is from what I've seen and heard, and is that if you can shoot 60% for mid-range and low post, then for sure you can do it. But if not, then it's better to work on your 3-pointers, because you only have to hit 33% of them. And yeah, it's the last couple of years, it's like kind of tough to get used to that because we've seen it already. But it is true, it is a theory that works, So yeah, I kind of like that. I don't mind it. I just wish Kristaps was maybe better in the pick and roll, and maybe shot better. But it is what it is. Right, so it's a new decade, and I wanted to talk about my favorite moments from the last decade a bit, and I think the best one is probably the Vince Carter game winner against the Spurs in, I believe, Game 6 in 2014 or 2013 it was, I think. The exact dates and stuff is kind of vague for me, but I still remember really well. I was staying up because I live in Western Europe in the Netherlands, and Mavericks games usually are around 2:30 a.m., which is really early in the morning or really late at night, however you want to see it. And it was on a Saturday, so that was actually kind of perfect. So I stayed up, and if I can't stay up, what I do is I just watch the game on League Pass the next day. Or I remain spoiler free. I turn all my notifications and social media off, and I just watch it as soon as I can, either when I'm back from work or just in the morning before work, or when I don't have work, just whenever I wake up. And that works, but watching live is pretty cool, pretty fun to do. And so the game ended at 5 a.m. I think, and it might have been an earlier game that started at 1:30 a.m. So I believe the game ended at 4 a.m. And yeah, I just jumped out of my seat and I was so happy to see that shot go in by Vince Carter. It was such a beautiful game winner, and that is probably my favorite memory. And also there was this game winner by Monta against Milwaukee, his former team at that time, and that was a crazy shot. It was like a spin move and then a one-legged fadeaway, and it was almost a 3-pointer. That was how deep it was. It was crazy, and I remember the game that there was a game where the Mavericks came back like from more than 20 points from the Trailblazers and won in overtime, and I believe there was like a go-ahead shot by Dirk. There was also a game where Dirk had a game winner against the Bulls a couple of years ago. 30,000 points against the Lakers. That shot by Dirk was very, very cool to see, with like the Kobe Bryant tap on his butt, and appreciating him. And that was cool to see. The Darren Williams game winner against Sacramento, I believe that was a game winner in like the first or second overtime. It was pretty crazy, and I believe the Mavs actually came back a little bit, and like Darren Williams fell over the coach from the Kings. I don't remember who it was, and that was pretty funny. Everybody like jumped on him because he fell, and that was super funny to see. And I remember the Mavericks trading Calderon for Tyson Chandler. That was pretty cool. Getting Monta, and he really outperforming everybody's expectation. Like his debut was like he had like 30 points in his debut, and that was pretty crazy. And my first season was the OJ Mayo season in 2012-13, because that's when League Pass first existed. So that was the only time. Like I tried getting into basketball the year before, but like highlights and stuff. So that was really fun because they tried to get back to 0.500, and they didn't shave their beard until they did, and it took like more than a month, and that was fun to see. I loved that. I was only like 14, 15 at the time, so I couldn't really grow a beard, but it's still fun to see the team do it. Right, so there was a period where Luka was hurt, of course, and the team actually did kind of okay in his absence, and that was kind of fun to see because everybody's expectation was a little lower, but then Kristaps and Tim Hardaway Jr. were out, and everybody like expected results out of like a fully healthy team, but the thing is that the team wasn't healthy. Like the team wasn't healthy at all, because honestly, Kristaps might be just as important as Luka, as crazy as it seems, because he provides so much spacing and defense, and he's actually a good rebounder this year. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is shooting ridiculous numbers from the 3-point line. Both of them are so important. I don't think this team is really a good team without them. That was kind of annoying to see. Like honestly, the expectations should be as low with Luka out as it should be with Kristaps and Tim out. Not that they're better than Luka, but maybe just as important. Maybe is what it is. And also, now that I'm already talking about that, people have crazy expectations, in my opinion. Like, it seems like I'm not really passionate in a way of like I get mad and disappointed, but the thing is, there have been seasons like my first season with OJ Mayo, and seasons where the Mavericks got like the 8th or 7th seed in 2013, against the Spurs in the first round, and those seasons were frustrating in a way because they were fighting for the 8th seed, and that causes for me to like really be frustrated and disappointed when they lose, because then they might not reach the playoffs, and that's honestly, to me, that's all that matters. And I have a lot of fun seeing the Mavericks like try to reach the playoffs, and now they've kind of been like cruising, they're just in the playoffs and they're being better than 0.500, and if they're staying 0.500 right now, they they will still make the playoffs, if they like win 50-50 from now on. And, so I'm not worried at all. And like they lost against the Suns lately. And yeah, it's frustrating, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, they'll bounce back the next game. It's not that they don't lose their playoff spot at all. And I prefer them to remain top 6. I would want them to have some more clutch games, and I would want them to win more at home. But even that is not really necessary for me. Like, as long as they just make the playoffs, I didn't even necessarily expect them to make the playoffs this year. I thought maybe 8th or 9th seed, I mean, some things have changed because like the Warriors aren't good, and the Trailblazers aren't either, the Spurs, So in a way, the Mavericks have to, they should be easily able to get the top 6, to get top 6 in the playoffs, and I want them to, and I think they can. But I'm just not really worried with a loss, because this is not a season where we should be worried. And Luka is 20, and Kristaps is 24, I believe. This is not a year where they have to win now. Where a year where they have to win now would have been for me, well, with like an aging Dirk, like a 35-year-old Dirk, with a 32-year-old Monta Ellis, and that their timeline was declining, and they had to win now. They had to get a decent seed in the playoffs, and so that was that had more pressure as a fan watching. But this year, it's just riding the wave, for me. And I understand that other people have bigger expectations, but it's a younger team and they have flashes. That's just what it is. A younger team has flashes where they're great, but then they have some weeks where they're less good. And Luka's still getting used to full 82 game seasons. He's tired at times. He does way too much. You can't expect this team to always win, and it doesn't always have to do with the opponents. It's just sometimes, a team is their own opponent sometimes too. That's how I see it. And like the Mavericks lost against the Jazz lately, who hadn't lost at home since December 6th, I believe. And everybody was so like frustrated on Twitter and stuff, and it's just like, they're the Jazz who hadn't lost at home since December 6th. The Jazz are one of the greatest team in the NBA right now. You can't really be upset, I mean, it was the way. I understand, the Mavs, if they had been a little more clutch, but it's not. The Mavericks didn't play bad, and the Jazz played just really well. So I just don't really get upset with that stuff anymore. Like I said, except for if the playoff spot for the Mavericks is in danger, then I start really getting nervous and frustrating, and but I don't have these crazy expectations, to be honest. Except if it's supposed to be on paper like a championship team, but it's never been that. So I don't really get the frustration, to be honest. And I would have been like kind of angry and frustrated and disappointed if the Mavericks lost against the Thunder, because then the Thunder would have been like 5th or 6th right now. But we beat them, and that caused them to be like a lot lower in the standings. So that's good. And I was happy with that. And then the Suns game didn't really matter as much. And it was also a back-to-back. And Luka is super tired. He does way too much. He needs the All-Star break for sure. And he doesn't even usually play in back-to-backs. I mean, he has, but the plan is always to not play. And I honestly didn't want him to play. I kind of hoped like JJ Barea would have started because weirdly enough he has some fresh legs because he didn't play against the Thunder, and Kristaps should definitely not have played, but it is what it is. I see so much like Dwight Powell hate like before his injury. Like, I mean, it was kind of nice to like when he got injured that everybody was kind of disappointed with that and like unhappy for him and sad for him, and I was kind of satisfied with that because it meant that people really do care about the players on the Mavericks and that they really appreciate how good Dwight is. And it just was kind of frustrated because, I've been frustrated with Dwight Powell before, like a couple of years back, because he shot too much 3-pointers, and he seemed to not always try on defense. But after so many years, it's just kind of clear to me that, well, first of all, he barely shot 3-pointers anymore, so I'm glad with that. And he only did it when it was really open, and it also seemed like when he missed one or two, he just stopped shooting because he recognized that he didn't shoot well, and he's statistically the best rim runner in the league right now, and that's why it's such a bad loss, and why he matters so much to the offense. And and the thing is, it's way less frustrating because he defends force now, and Kristaps is a good rim protector. So, and Dwight isn't really not necessarily a bad perimeter defender. So I was really okay with it. A lot of people, they acted like he was a bad rim protector and stuff, but he doesn't really defend the rim. So I don't really get that. And he's not a great rebounder, but luckily Kristaps is an improved rebounder this year. So I'm okay with it. And I kind of miss him. He was fun to see play, and some bad losses has been because of his loss. He just makes the offense so flow. He lets the offense so much flow, and that's why it's a huge loss. And he's also like a great hardworking person who doesn't deserve an Achilles tear. So that's also why it sucks. I'm kind of worried that he doesn't come back as strong as he is right now because he jumps so much and he's so much reliant on his athleticism. But we'll see. The treatment and stuff has been better last couple of years. Keeps improving, and the medical staff on the Mavs are great. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I believe that Willie Cauley-Stein can provide the same stuff and be a good replacement. So it'll be fine. I just hope that when he comes back next year, that he just is still the same Dwight. He's still just as good, and that he can still like play with Luka for years to come. So that said, there's the question of like, do the Mavs need some more trades? And a lot of people have been talking about Andre Drummond, and I mean, I like Andre Drummond, but not for the. I don't think the Mavs can just easily get him. They'd have to like give up maybe a couple of picks, maybe like a bunch of good young players, and I don't really want that. It's not really necessary either. It's unfortunate that Dwayne Dedman has an expensive contract, and also that he talked to the media about wanting to be traded, and so I don't honestly think he will be traded because he did that. But I would have liked him, and I maybe the Mavericks shouldn't have needed to give up a lot, but yeah, probably still too much. So the safe trade for Willie is fine by me, and also it's a good idea to keep a lot of money, So hopefully they can offer a lot of money for Bogdan Bogdanovic next year, who is a restricted free agent on the Kings, who right now don't really have the money for Bogdanovic. So the Mavs could get him next year. That's not. We'll see. We'll have to find out. But it's a good idea to keep the money and not trade for someone big. And so I'm fine if the Mavs don't make any moves left. But I would like to see Courtney Lee get traded for something. And the Mavericks, of course, still have a big trade exception, and I wouldn't mind them using that, but not overspend and not sell not give away too many good players and picks, So, the Mavs have struggled in fourth quarters, and it's really that has really been frustrating, to be honest, because the Mavericks are right in the game, and then you just know beforehand, like, oh, they're gonna lose this because Mavericks suck in fourth quarters. Only when they blow out teams is when the lead is really safe, and that has been really frustrating. Yeah, I mean, they're a young team, and it's just kind of weird because Luka has been clutch before last year, but I think what it is teams have figured out what to do to stop Luka a bit in the fourth quarter, and a lot of the times they double team him, and it's just like bad luck. Like he doesn't time his pass good enough, or he just it's all a bunch of things like that. And there was lately a pass attempt by Luka to pass to Tim Hardaway Jr. and he had like a great shot, and he and Tim missed it, and that was really unfortunate. That felt like the one game winner that should have gone in. Yeah. So I don't really know what they can do. I think just maybe if things don't work with Luka, just maybe pass to Tim Hardaway Jr. and see if he can ISO into like a good shot, or maybe, even though Kristaps isn't great in the low post and everything about that, maybe in like game-winning shots, just give the ball to Kristaps in the post, and see if he can make that. I think Kristaps can definitely do that. He still practices in the post, I assume, and he's still good enough in the post. It's just not a great play for like half-court offense. In a game-winning attempt, it's not a bad idea in my opinion. And I mean, they'll figure it out. And like I said before, they don't have to win anything this year. It's just as long as they make the playoffs, win a couple of games in the first round, then it's been a good season. I hope and I believe they can go to the second round though. And that's why I hope they remain like the 5th or 6th seed and go up against like the Jazz or the Nuggets. I would love that. And I think they could definitely make it an interesting series and maybe even win. And that's why I'm not really worried, and like the Clippers are load managing so much. So the chance that you have to play them when you're like the 5th or 4th seed is pretty high. So it might just be as good of an idea to maybe get the 6th seed, So I really am not worried about their seeding. They're just, wherever they land is where they land, and I feel confident that they can make it a series. That's why I'm not frustrated about it. But I would like to see them succeed in the clutch just for once, and maybe play better at home. And it is definitely frustrating, but they're like exceeding the expectations so much, and they'll be clutch for years to come. This is just like year one of Luka and Kristaps together. Like, don't even worry about it. They'll be clutch together in the coming years for sure. Oh, and also just to clarify, I will be very frustrated with every playoff loss. Like I've been that way with every. With every playoff series that the Mavs have been in, I've been like really pissed at every loss. Like I'll be cranky for days, and like I said, with like a season where the Mavs have to fight hard for their seeding, I'll be cranky. But this is just a fun, stressless season for me, and I'm enjoying it. And I think more people should treat it like that. But everybody watches basketball in their own way, and I'm fine with it. But like I said, in the playoffs I will be extremely passionate and really cranky for days if they lose a game, because in the playoffs it all matters really, really very much. And also in the last 10 games of the season, I will be really hoping they might get a good seeding, and then everything cranks up. So let's do like an all-decade team for me. I think, Dirk is obviously number one. But then it actually is kind of tough. I think Jason Terry is number two. I've been fortunate to when I started watching basketball to still see him like through highlights and stuff, because League Pass, like I said, wasn't around in 2011-12. But I've seen him like be on the team and watch highlights, and I've seen him play on other teams pretty well, and he's one of my favorite Mavs, even though I didn't really follow him. I think he's definitely number 2, and I'm pretty sure he's never been an All-Star, which is honestly kind of disappointing because he's played at All-Star levels for sure, and like in NBA 2K, he in the all-time Mavericks team, he is only like an 86. I don't really understand why. He could have easily been like a 90, in my opinion. Let's see, probably Jason Kidd, even though I'm not necessarily a fan of his game or anything, and I've only watched him like also like 1 year on the Mavs and then seen him on the Knicks and be old. That's all I remember from him, you know. But from the way I've heard people and from what I've seen from older games, he definitely deserves to be number 3. I think then at number 4, definitely Shawn Marion. Like I think on the Mavericks, he's been Defensive Player of the Year one time, and he's been an All-Star on the Suns, and he kind of kept that level on the Mavericks, just in a smaller role. And Shawn Marion is great, and he deserves that number 4 spot. Then I think Monta Ellis at 5. Yeah, Monta Ellis has like carried the Mavs in seasons that would have been really bad seasons had it not been for him. And he's been better than Dirk at times. Dirk was an All-Star, and Dirk actually said, like, why? Because Monta is playing better. Like, why am I an All-Star, not him? And that was super, super awesome by Dirk, and it was actually kind of true. And I'm glad that Dirk was the All-Star, because at the end of the day, I care more about Dirk. But I would not have minded seeing Monta Ellis be an All-Star. He very deserved it. And Monta was super clutch. He was, I believe, the most clutch player in 2014-15 before the Rondo trade. And I think that's kind of unfortunate as well. If they didn't make the trade for Rondo, then the timetable would have been different and Monta would have maybe stayed. But you know, we'll never know. I think at number 6 then Tyson Chandler, who I actually considered at like number 4 or 5. But I think he's been here in 2 stints for only 1 year both times. And I mean, the thing is, if he wasn't on the 2011 team, the Mavericks probably would not have been a champion. But I think you can say the same about Shawn Marion, which is why I had him higher. And it's just Tyson Chandler isn't the guy that like carries the team like Monta Ellis did. So, still number 6 though. Okay, so number 7, definitely JJ Barea, who, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe deserved to be higher, but these 6 that I listed were the first that came to my mind and were the most important in my mind. And I don't mind JJ Barea at 7. I think he's played really well in 2011, of course, and in the seasons that I watched. But I feel like had it not been for Monta Ellis, that both those seasons with him would have been a disaster. And had it not been for Tyson Chandler, the Mavs would have not been a champion. But I think JJ Barea in a way is replaceable, but tough to say. Then at 8, definitely Vince Carter, who stuck around, and I have seen him a couple of years, and he did that game winner that I mentioned against the Spurs. So I really appreciate Vince Carter. He was really good, always accepting his role, whether he started, but mostly he came off the bench, and he was always okay with it. And I really appreciate Vince Carter. Then at number 9, I have Harrison Barnes. And I'm not sure other people have him in this list, but it's the same thing with Monta Ellis. I don't take things like that for granted. It's a season that I mean, tough to say because Harrison Barnes, it was still kind of a tanking season, but at the same time, it was super fun to watch him like carry the Mavs, and then he was still around, during like the Dennis Smith Jr. years and even Luka for a bit, and he was just such a culture guy, and he scored a lot of points, and I feel like Harrison Barnes should have like provided more, like it should have like translated more into winning, but it didn't. But it felt like he was like a winning player and really important on the team. So maybe now that I'm thinking about it, I think Devin Harris is number 9. And I'm gonna actually, this is so tough because I'm thinking about, instead of Harrison Barnes, putting Dwight Powell at 10. Because Dwight Powell has actually been here for a bunch of years. Like, he's been here really long. And he has provided like so much offensive flow and stuff. And no, I think ultimately, yeah, Harrison Barnes, it's just bad luck that he wasn't on like a winning team, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. And a lot of it was because, we thought we signed DeAndre Jordan, but then he didn't came, and then at least we had Harrison Barnes, and we didn't really have much around him. I mean, that was the year after, but like a lot of big free agents were already signed that year before. So, and it was also kind of weird that the year before Harrison Barnes, we actually really competed. We had Darren Williams and Wes Matthews and Zaza Pachulia, who all really contributed to winning. And I was really surprised that we let them go. We could have had them next to Harrison Barnes and maybe compete for a playoff spot again. So it's not on Harrison Barnes, and I think he was actually a good player, especially in his first year where he ISO'd a lot and he scored very efficiently. But he had a hard time adapting to playing off ball, and I don't mind the Mavericks trading him, but he was like an amazing person, and he's, if you would ask me like who my favorite Mavericks are, he might be in my top 5 because I appreciate him so much, and I love him as a person, and great basketball player too, and so that's my top 10. Like, let's go over it again. Dirk, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd, Sean Marion, Monta Ellis at 5, and then Tyson Chandler. Then I have who was it again? I'm just now realizing, and I don't know how I'm going to do that with editing, but I'm just now realizing that I forgot Luka. It's okay if he isn't on the top 10 list, I guess. Because this is like also a list to remember the players before Luka, because Luka was like right at the end of the decade. So Luka probably, in my opinion, would be like 3rd, like right after Jason Terry. I think, yeah, he's already really proved that he's been really important. But I think for now it's fine to not have him on the list, yeah. So yeah, my list: Dirk, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd, Sean Marion, Monta Ellis, Tyson Chandler at 6, and then JJ Barea at 7, Vince Carter at 8, Devin Harris at 9, and then Harrison Barnes at 10. I think that's my final list. And like I said, if Luka is in there, it's just tough to say because he's been here for so short. But yeah, Luka definitely number 3, I think. Yeah. So so I'm recording this on Friday, the 31st of January, and tonight the Mavs play against the Rockets, and it's at 1:30 a.m. my time, which means that it ends at 4 a.m. And honestly, I've been kind of waking up early this week. Yeah, now that I think about it, I got some stuff I gotta do Monday, so I might Monday morning, so I might not really want to mess up my sleep schedule for once, which I usually do on the weekends, but we'll see. I probably will just watch it Saturday morning, when I wake up. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope the Mavericks win against the Rockets, and go Mavs.
I got too much Monta.
Monta Ellis, ask the fellas. Food talk trash because they jealous. Laid back from the south, trying to hack up, I'll make you shut your mouth.